Potential pattern change, or what looks like it's going to be a pattern change, heading into late November, early December. Opportunity for some winter weather for many, especially in the interior. Maybe not the coast, we'll get into that later, but definitely looks like it could be a snowy turn for the early part of December, late part of November. Heights, um, the height anomalies on the GFS. The two areas really to pay attention to are this building ridge in Alaska, building ridge in Arctic Canada, not quite in Greenland, but it's close enough to Greenland. This is a negative EPO and a negative NAO. And when you get the two together, you tend to force Arctic air southward. So, those two working together will bring rounds of cold shots um, to the eastern U.S. and partly the western U.S., but I do think it'll be the eastern and central U.S. I should say eastern and central U.S. that will be the most effective. So right now we have our storm system in the northeast bringing accumulating snow if you're above 1,000 feet. I would say maybe some grassy accumulation if you're above 500 feet. Below 500 feet, snow might mix in, but any accumulation is unlikely. Um, Paved accumulation would be above 1,000 feet. I would say maybe above 1,500. But yeah, um, I guess snow could still mix in with rain. Move on up. They'll move on out. Um, Central states, but we have a bit of a ridge building in the central states. Our storm system moves onshore in the Pacific Northwest. But I think the main thing to focus on here is this negative EPO building, and that's eventually going to force some cold air south. So, um, it's kind of it's. I mean, there's not much happening. A bit of a ridge in the eastern states. It's not a significant one, and then this is when the cool down really starts. Um, the EPO and the EPO is fully built. We also this W negative WPO, what negative Western Pacific Oscillation. So you have ridge in the Western Pacific, so Siberia, ridge in the Eastern Pacific, and ridging in the North Pacific in general. Just forces that cold air south. So that's what's going to happen. We also have the ridge extending into Western Canada, and that's important that uh, make sure that the coal doesn't get locked up there. So that's a positive PNA. Their outbreak, really, I would say Arctic. I would say this is an Arctic blast, the first one of the season. If you ask me, and we just get these reinforcing shots of cold air. Shot of cold air number one, shot of cold air number two, shot of cold air number three, shot four, shot of cold air number five, reinforcing shots of cold air on the GFS. If we take a look at the Eastern US, let's run that back real quick. We build this negative EPO, we have a negative NAO, positive PNA, and we just keep getting these reinforcing shots of cold air. This is actually a better look at that positive PNA. You can see the Western Canada Ridge, East Pacific Ridge, NAO. This is really a best case scenario for cold and snow in the east. And yeah, you can see just on the 500 millibar chart, a lot of lower heights, which indicates lower. It's colder and stormier. That's what it indicates, really. So, opportunities for snow, uh, especially in the interior, will be interior focused. I'm not gonna say anything like even I-95 Sydney is gonna get snow. Could they get snow? Yes. I mean, it's not unheard of for them to get snow in early December. That's certainly not no one's gonna be surprised if that happens. But it will be interior focused, if that makes sense. So, we'll get it on the cold, that's for sure, but maybe not the snow. Um, Reinforcing shots of cold air. That's not something really we saw all of last winter. I want to say. I mean, we saw, or at least I didn't see it all of last winter. I never saw something like this all of last winter. Maybe besides mid-January. Mid-January was that time frame of that Arctic blast. But other than that Arctic blast, I didn't really see this. This is kind of insane. Or at least insane for me because I haven't been around that long. It's happened before. But yeah, um, in terms of where we end off still with more cold air coming in. This is more cold air diving eastward. We still have this negative EPO. This would mean even this would probably extend the cold shots into mid-December, if I had to guess. We still have this negative NAO, still a positive PNA. This is really a best case scenario on the GFS. It can be this isn't phantom like this. The cold shots aren't phantom. They might end up being weaker, but the odds that they don't happen are very low. We have the ensemble support it. Everything supports it. So I don't think it's it's phantom, but it might be slightly because the GFS is quite strong in the 500 millibar, and it keeps this ridge out in Alaska ridge even more, even strengthens the ridge to an extent, and also builds a bit more of a ridge in Western Canada. So yeah, very good recipe on the GFS model. There are temperature anomalies. So I'll go to 850 lower temperature anomaly. This is temperature anomaly at the upper levels. I think this is a better indicator, in my opinion, of the overall temperature pattern. So we get a brief cool down. This is their storm system moving in within. That's the reason we're going to get snow in November. In places where you don't, well, actually, snow in November, but a lot of places are going to see snow are kind of hitting their averages. I don't know if that makes sense. Like here in DC, we average a trace of snow in November, and we'll probably see a trace of snow. So, you know, unusual for November, but it is unusual for November. I don't know if that makes sense. But yeah, that's the colder air that's going to cause all that snowfall and a lot of snow for the Appalachians and the mountains in northern Pennsylvania and far northwestern New Jersey. So that'll move on out. Let me get a brief warm up for Tuesday. So the morning Tuesday might actually be quite warm compared to average. Bit of a southeast ridge here, but overall in the northeast and northern part of the country, I would say it's more of a north-south split. We have warmer air, and after that, you can say Tudelu to the warmer than average conditions if you're anywhere really north of Georgia, I would say, um, and in the east of the Rockies. Let me just look at this. That brief warm up ends. Thanksgiving looks spared for the most part. It's not horrible. You know, if you're up here, it already is bad. You're probably used to this kind of stuff. The Great Lakes region, it could be pretty. It could be a lot worse. I'll show that in a bit. Um, we're already starting to see temperatures 10 degrees below average. More like 15, 13. I can't do the exact conversions in my head. But yeah, this is far below normal temperatures. And what's interesting is we also not below normal, not as below normal. You see pockets of warmth, but normally you would need to have um needs to happen. So that's interesting. That's because of that negative EPO really, it's allowing for not incredibly warm conditions in the west, which would force incredibly cold air southeast. So that's not usual. Um, head into the first day of December, first day of meteorological winter. It's gonna look a lot like winter, and now we do have warmth building out west. We do have pockets of cold, but now we really have more warmth building out west. But this cold push is happening without the warmth building out west. Is what I would um it it starts to build, and if you ask me, this warmth building always extends the cold shot. It extends it if I had to say it. We get a shot of cold air, so this shot of cold air comes in. So I'm talking about the reinforcing shots of cold air. If this didn't exist, you might think warm up again because that's usually what happens. Nope, there's more. This one digs um 3 degrees Celsius below normal in like Iowa, portions of Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota, South Nebraska, South Dakota. So very, very, very chilly temperatures. This will last quite a while too. This will last like over a week. The overall cool down, each cool down will last like up, and you might think oh, look, there's warmth coming. Look, it's finally not going to be in the teens at night or whatever, depending on where you live. Nope, there's more cold coming. So, reinforcing shots of cold air in the east will be the name of the game. This will provide, like I said before, the opportunity for snow when you're this far below average and you're in December. The opportunities will be there for snow. That's just the reality. Even in the coast. Do I think it's gets on the coast? There, absolutely. So that's. I don't want to hype it up. That's why I'm cautioning people saying there's going to be snow, but will there be um pattern? And I'm focusing out east because where most of the action's happening, but we do have warmth building out west. We do have our positive PNA out west, and that would extend this cold blast into mid December. Another thing, not to get too far ahead of myself, the MJO will move into favorable phases for warm. Well, it doesn't mean the rest of December can't be cold too, but if I had to guess, mid December we'll see a pattern flip back to warm, and then maybe late December we'll see a pattern flip back to cold. Although that's obviously way too far in the future. It's just not going to talk about that. But this won't last forever. Is what I'm saying. If you're an evil human being and you don't like cold, um, temperature. Have a look at our surface map or precipitation. For some reason, it's still on 384 hours. Okay, nice. All right, so this is our storm system. Way off to the shore. Um, Snow, rain showers depending on your exact location. Snow for the Appalachia, snow for parts of the Ohio Valley, and snow for parts of the interior Northeast. Then we get this low to come onshore, upper low, and that's gonna dive southward. Mostly rain ends up happening. Oh, not mostly rain. I don't know. Well, I misspoke there. A lot of snow actually. Snow. Really, anything north of I-70. Assuming you're not on like a slushy coating on grass, if you're high elevation, you'll see more than that. If you're in my area, I would say north of I-70, a slushy coating on grass cannot be ruled out. The further north you go, the more likely it is. Um, Appalachia is going to see significant snowfall, but we get this low kind of dive southward. Um, our upper low, and some rain, some snow, high pressure builds. Not much going on besides in the Pacific Northwest. We do have a storm moving onshore, and then we get this cutter system early Thanksgiving week. If you're confused what a cutter system is a system that takes this kind of a storm track, an inland storm track, instead of taking this kind of storm track. And what that this is not that important now because there's not that much cold air in place anyway. But what that's important for, and this is also something we see in a La Nina a lot. So it's unsurprising it's happening because we're in a La Nina like pattern. Is it'll draw milder up from the from the Atlantic and the Gulf, and that tends to leave many cities along 95 with rain, and many places in the Ohio Valley and Tennessee Valley with snow. It creates more of an east-west split, if that makes sense. 81 would be the split, I would say. Not usually not that much cold air in place, so it's not that big of a deal. But that is a cutter system. Our, so this is our system that everyone's been talking about, and um, the first. So storm track actually for snow along 95. This is a or for in DC anyway, and then it takes the ideal storm track for snow in New York. So it doesn't show it, but if this cold push, if this 540 line was down here in southern Maryland, which if this is January, it probably would be, if we're being honest with ourselves. It depends on the exact situation. But this is actually where you want to see the low set up. Pretty much exactly. Um, Not go as far out to shore. Maybe you want to see it, especially if you're in northern New England. You want to see it curve further north if you're in DC or New York or Philly or Baltimore or um, low placement. We get there's now there is, but theoretically, uh, you don't have like I described really, like I described the cutter system where you have warm air intrusion. When you have the low here, the odds of warm air intrusion from the Gulf and the Atlantic and the warmer oceans are lower. You do still see it. It's also November. That's another thing to keep in mind. November. So anything can happen if this January. Be a lot more confident in it, but it's November. It's unlikely that the major cities get snow, but we'll have to see. But we do see snow for Pennsylvania and northern Maryland and Western Virginia. Mess. It's a whole mess on Thanksgiving. Mess of snow and rain. Depending on where you are, I'm even gonna like attempt to say where there's snow and rain, but you can see it's a whole mess. But yeah, if we do get more cold air in place, I could see this could be a significant storm if the low were to track like this. I want to emphasize this. And another thing to talk about with the GFS is that it tends to have a southern bias. So this could easily track more like this, be like off the coast of New Jersey, theoretically. But let's see, I'm skeptical of it. Anyway, that's our first opportunity for snow, really. Then we have our high pressure building, but we have what looks to me like a clipper system coming in. Honestly, I don't know what classifies as a clipper. Anyway, we have system diving down from the north and west, bringing another opportunity for snow. No snow, but this is another opportunity for snow. If the precipitation were to move southward, that would bring snow, in my opinion, along many cities. So again, all those I-95 cities will have opportunities for snow. This could be another one, although it doesn't look too impressive. This is not even gonna comment on this one. Um, that interesting curves to the to the east, but if this were to go further north and without going so east, just go directly north, it would meet a lot of cold air in place. So I'm not saying it's gonna snow um very far out, but just there's a lot of energy flying around. There's a lot of cold air in place. So when I say there's gonna be opportunities, I mean there's gonna be opportunities, but nothing looks set in stone at this point. And we got another system to come on down. Low pressure to dive southward along that jet stream. So many opportunities for snow might not materialize. We'll have to see. But yeah, hopefully we get snow. I'm praying for snow so much, man. European model. Really quickly, we're off with the European heights, and it's a bit it's a bit different than the GFS we do of our ridge in Alaska, ridge in Greenland. Um, a positive P&A pattern storm for a while now. Not a while, but like a day or so, I would say for most people. Um, and we get a bit of a storm system move onshore of the Pacific Northwest. Like I said before, the main things to focus on are up near Alaska, up near Greenland. We have our EPO and our NAO doing their thing, and then we get our cold air. We give a miniature cool down in Tuesday and a Wednesday, but we get our big cool down coming, and impressive. That's all I'm gonna say. Um, like the GFS, it looks impressive, and we get our reinforcing shots of cold air. What's different on this model is it's showing a positive NAO, a positive EPO. There's still a Western negative WPO. Um, but positive EPO, positive NAO. You can see this ridge advancing further east. This would likely mean warmer than average conditions. So if we just look at this GFS, it's a stark difference. You can see we have a neutral NAO. I would say maybe a positive NAO, but you still have that negative EPO, positive PNA. That's first thing called their south, the European, trying to move eastward. So, European model in terms of the 500 millibar heights. Now, if we look at our temperature anomaly pattern, we have our brief cool down with that storm system. On the European, similar to the GFS, lasts a bit longer. Maybe Monday and Tuesday could be warmer than normal. But look, already our cold air intruding, bit of a cool down, and then we get a bit of a warm up. Even this is interesting. On Friday, could be warmer than normal actually. But then look, we have our shots of cold air and reinforcing shots. Yeah, it's not as doesn't look as impressive as the GFS. I will say. It doesn't last as long. Only lasts like a little bit longer. I would favor the European on this one because this is usually right. Unfortunately, too bad, but it is warm air moving eastward. That more blob, you could say, move. First week of December, and it might be warm second week. Although I wouldn't, 500 millibar heights now. Anyway, in terms of precipitated moisture, in the reason I didn't really focus on the anomalies, the temperature anomalies as much is really just it's very similar. I can go back to them actually. Um, it's very similar as the GFS. It's just slightly weaker. Um, we also have more cold. Colder air moving into the west, and that's pushing the warmer east. That's forgot to mention that, but yeah, that's you can see this colder air. Oh my god, nice. All right, I'm just gonna go with precipitation. But anyway, warmer air pushing onshore the Pacific Northwest is pushing that warmer air uh, further to the east. A low that's going to dive southward, deliver you rain or snow depending on location, elevation, all that good stuff. Forecast is earlier. Elevation dependent of over 1,000 feet. I think we'll see accumulation. This is our Thanksgiving Day storm. Is a weaker, takes a more southern. I cannot speak. This is not a Thanksgiving storm. I thought this was. Oh no, it is a Thanksgiving storm. So we have a early morning Thanksgiving storm, and then we have a storm. That's interesting. On the European, little snow unless you're in far northern Pennsylvania, southern New York, and Connecticut and Massachusetts. This is the big story though. Low pressure, and look, it's a cutter. Okay, so even if there was cold air in place, you can see the warm air surge um, east of the low. So if it were to take a storm track like this, and considering the fact that it's November, almost no opportunity for snow along 95. This would pretty much cut off any snow chances. So not the track you want to see. Track on the GFS would favor snow in places along 95. Not saying it's gonna snow. The GFS is gonna say it's gonna snow. That's concerning. But yeah, the European model has that track, and behind it we do get the cold air. We get again not gonna it's gonna allow for much cooler temperatures. And that's pretty much a surface map. So yeah, cutter system, storm track to the north and west. Then we get our energy around the Great Lakes, potential for some lake effect snow. Um, High pressure builds in the west. For once in its life, Pacific Northwest is not super active, although, as I said, we do get a system in the Pacific Northwest, Western Canada. That's going to move on shore, and we can see that cold air being pushed uh, westward or eastward, and that warm air also being pushed eastward. So that on the European model, at least that cold blob is on its last legs. It's not model. I had to close a tab earlier because my computer might crash if I kept it open. So um, it's -54 hours. Shall wait for it to load. It is. While this is loading, I think I'll see the temperature anomalies now because this refuses to load for some. I don't know if it's my Wi-Fi or what it is, but you can see. Yeah, snowfall. We have a warm up here in the west, and this is going to be our cold shots that will eventually come down. We get our warm up again, but then after cool down, I think this illustrates the idea of uh, several separate cooldowns better. We get the cooldown number one, right? As impressive. But four cooldowns. The warmth is still out west. This would probably encourage even more cold air. So unlike the European model, I could see more cold air after this if this were to verify. In terms of out west, what's happening out west? They're blobs of cold, blobs of warm. It's mostly warm for the most part. So, um, eastern and north central U.S. I would say like, but interesting stuff if you ask me on the models on the European model. Now to go back to the heights, hopefully everything's loaded. Gonna start guessing what's snow, what's rain. That's not a good thing. So, yeah, European AI doesn't show for precipitation. This